was a highly popular staple of British daytime TV for 14 years, regularly attracting more than 1 million viewers every morning. But the days of the controversial Jeremy Kyle show are now over. Following the suspected suicide of a man who'd recently taken part in a recording, ITV has permanently axed the programme.
Hello, Jodie. You said she's tried to sleep with everybody on the street because she's desperate for a baby.
You know, he hasn't got...
She said that you're only a lesbian because you're an ugly old trollop. That's what she said.
Well, with the format focusing on family rows and relationship breakdowns, the show had often faced uncomfortable questions over its casting policy and treatment of vulnerable guests. The Commons Culture Committee today confirmed it is launching an inquiry into reality TV as a whole and the support that's given to people whose personal lives are exposed on air. We considered the issue with the committee member and SNP MP Brendan O'Hara, who's a former TV producer, the psychologist Honey Langcaster-James, who's worked on various reality TV shows, and the showbiz journalist Beverly Lyons. Honey, do you think ITV had any choice but to axe the show?
Well, I do think they had choice, yes. I mean, clearly it's a very popular show. It's been running for a number of years. I do think it was the right decision, and I welcome the decision to end that particular show. I do think it was a very unique show in its format, really quite different in terms of the demands that it placed on contributors compared to many, many other TV shows. And it does concern me when we start to sort of put them all in one bracket, because the experience for contributors does vary quite widely from show to show.
And we can explore that issue a little bit later, but Brendan, can I just get your reaction, first of all, about ITV's decision to stop the show?
Oh, I think it was absolutely the correct decision, and I don't think they had a choice. I think the decision was there, it had to be made, and they've taken it. I think shows like the Jeremy Kyle show really, where do they fit in this modern society? You know, they are a throwback, I think, to a previous era, and I'm glad to see the back of it, frankly.
Bev, I mean, this is ITV's most popular daytime show, bigger ratings than This Morning even. I didn't realise that's so popular. I mean, can you understand why it was so popular?
Everybody loves drama, and this was drama at its best and worst, of course. But, you know, the characters, yes, real-life characters going through scenarios that we would encounter, but maybe on a larger scale, or maybe very similar to us. But when I say us, the people that didn't appear on it, myself, I haven't appeared on Jeremy Kyle, but scenarios that we could well experience at home behind closed doors.
Brendan, can it not look a bit po-faced to look down on this show when there's clearly been an appetite and an audience for it?
Oh, I wouldn't deny that there's an appetite, indeed probably an insatiable appetite for it, but it certainly doesn't make it right. And I think that the danger that we are in is that what was originally perceived as shocking and outrageous, once it's been done, it becomes routine and mundane, and the pressure is then on to find even more and even more outrageous examples of behaviour. And I think that eventually we were in the terms of almost exploiting vulnerable people, of catapulting vulnerable people into a situation in which they would lose control and have no understanding or, you know, acceptance of what their life was going to become once it had been turned inside out for the titillation of viewers the length and breadth of the UK. So, as I said, I'm glad to see the back of it.
Honey, would you agree with that? Was it kind of titillating the audience, really?
Well, I think, you know, I have heard arguments that have said that it allowed certain people to access help and support, therapy, rehab, for example, who might not otherwise have done that. But I personally did have some concerns about that particular show in the way that the specific focus of the contributors' time on TV was their darkest, you know, difficulties. And it wasn't handled in what I thought to be a sensitive way. Some of the behaviour that I saw on the show in any other circumstance programs would be deemed as kind of bullying or potentially humiliating at times. And that was something that I felt quite uncomfortable about. But I am also concerned that this gets sort of made into a bit of a political issue when actually we're living in a time that I believe is a mental health crisis. And I believe that there aren't good enough provisions out there for people, ordinary people, to reach out and get help when they need it. And one of the dangers here is that this gets turned into something, let's point the finger at reality TV, let's point the finger at TV production companies, and that we forget that actually, regardless of going on TV, everybody needs help at times. And at the moment, we can't always access it when we need it.
OK, Brendan, your committee is holding an inquiry into reality TV as a whole. So what's the purpose of your inquiry then?
I mean, I think that the purpose of the inquiry is really to see if, well, what support is currently out there from production companies, from broadcasters. Is it adequate? Do we always follow best practice? Perhaps discovering what is best practice. And also looking at the psychological damage that can be done by format programmes such as these. So we have asked for evidence to be submitted from a whole range of stakeholders, and hopefully over the summer we'll get to some kind of conclusion as to exactly where the future lies for this kind of television programme.
Do you think there's value in this inquiry? Is it the right time to have it?
I think undoubtedly you need to look and make sure that the right routines have been gone through. But this is the thing, routines, box ticking, as long as it's not just a box ticking exercise. And I think that the thing is, you can look at every TV show that involves members of the public or entertainers. A lot of people who enter into the TV industry or entertainment industry are the vulnerable people, you know, the sad clowns. You know, you always hear that story from years ago. So it's a very extensive thing, but I think if you can hold people accountable for making sure that they say the right things and do the right things, that's a start.
And Honey, to return to the point you made earlier, you know, it's a big kind of umbrella term, reality TV, isn't it? And the Jeremy Kyle show, you think, is a different kind of reality TV show to something like Love Island that you've worked on.
I do. You know, my job is to assess, when I get asked by a production company to work on a show, my job is to assess what are the demands that are going to be placed on these contributors, and then what services need to be put in place to support them, and also looking at aftercare as well. Now, undoubtedly, you know, there can be improvements in this industry, and I, for one, have been campaigning for a while to put in place some improvements. But that's not to say that all TV shows that feature, you know, contributors are the same, because the experience for contributors is what counts, and it's not always how it immediately appears to the viewing public. So, for example, people who go on Love Island, actually during filming, the vast majority of their day is really quite dull, boring and mundane, and it's only those sort of small highlights of the day that maybe make it into the highlight show and that create the drama. For them in particular, the danger, I think, comes right at the end of the process, even many months after they come off the show, and their sort of popularity starts to decline. And one of the improvements that I try to put in place with my own company, Onset Welfare, is that we offer production companies the opportunity to say, give the contributors our number direct so they can come to us, because some previous contributors to different reality shows have told me that they often see producers as holding power to get them more exposure on television, and they don't want to tell them if they're struggling. So we try to remove that, and we say, well, that's fine, we'll stay in contact with you, come to us afterwards. But I definitely welcome ITV's decision to end this particular show, because I think we can make entertaining programmes that don't necessarily leave people subject to humiliation, for example.
And Bev, would you agree with that about the follow-up? Because you probably interviewed loads of these people that have been in reality TV shows.
It's awful, actually, for some people. You know, they get this explosion of fame and then there's nothing. You know, it's deserted afterwards. So, yeah, I do think it's great if they can get that support. But people are human beings. You know, they're always going to be more vulnerable human beings and stronger human beings. And it's, you cast a wide net across society, there's always going to be somebody that will fall through that hole, I think.
Brendan, what would you make of that? You know, it's the kind of people perhaps that are attracted to these programmes are always going to be vulnerable.
Well, I think that's where we have a duty of care. I think just because someone puts their hand up to do something doesn't mean that you have carte blanche to turn their lives inside out, expose their innermost feelings, and then chuck them in the scrap heap. And that's morally wrong. And I think it's a societal problem as well. And I think that my concern would be that shows like this will come back, and they will come back in another title and another channel. But as long as the public has this demand to see its fellow citizens humiliated and turned inside out like this, then sadly, programmes like this will come back.
Okay, all right. Brendan, Honey and Bev, thank you all very much indeed for joining us this evening.